This is Blocks to Flow, the space where learning, living, and leading return to alignment. Hosted by Kohila Sivas. Together we reconnect, restore, and rewire the missing link. Unlearn survival, relearn rhythm.
Hello, Coach Alexa. Welcome. How are you today?
I'm wonderful. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. I have a ritual of starting our podcast with the most important thing we can all do to bring us to ground ourselves and make us presence here because we're so busy is to do a breathing exercise. That's how I start my podcast. So is there one that you like to do?
I like to do a 3 deep breath grounding. I do that frequently in my house with my kids too, even. So just 3. Yeah, it is just taking 3 simple deep breaths, just in through your nose and holding for 2 and out for a count of 4. And it just kind of settles you and you can kind of feel yourself relax. And we do it 3 times and it really is helpful.
Yeah, and you do it with your kids?
I do, yeah. Yeah, they're young, but they do it. Yeah.
Nice. Because it does, right? It just drops your shoulder, right? Because we're just like this all the time, like all worried or frustrated or anxious about what's next. Even kids are. So that's awesome. So let's do that 3 times. You want to lead us?
Sure, yeah.
For inhale as well, or just the exhale,
Inhale, I tend to do 2, but again, my kids are really young, so we do 2, but we can do in for 4 and out for 4. So we can do that. So inhale, in for 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, and out for 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going to do that 2 more times. In for 4. 2, 3, 4, and out for 4. 2, 3, 4, and once more. In for 4. 2, 3, 4, and out for 4. 2, 3, 4.
Awesome. Thank you. Do you feel grounded? I am.
I do, yeah. I always feel my shoulders come down with it. I don't ever realize how high up they are in my ears until I do these exercises.
So you're certified Blocks to Flow coach, Alexa. So when you think about the phrase Blocks to Flow, what moment in your life comes to your mind first?
I actually think about the biggest block to flow in my personal life was a little bit of denial I had when it came to seeing the big picture with my son who is autistic. And even though I come from a background of special education, was very much in denial about him being autistic. I just kept saying, nope, that's not him. That's not him. I could explain away every characteristic. And it was blocking me and my son and my husband from being able to get him the help and moving on to more in life. I was spending so much time focusing and fixating on all these little things of what was stopping and, oh, no, that's not it. No, I'm fine. And then finally, when I was able to release that block and be like, you know what? He is who he is. This is who he is. We need to heal as a family and move on. I was almost like a dam in the water that, holds all that water until when the beavers build the dams and they let them go. And it's just that gush of water just pours out. It was this big relief of I could breathe, I could relax, and we could move forward to this journey.
So that block denial, that's normal, right? When parents see it, there's something not looking right, the milestones maybe not matching with other kids, and your son or other sons or daughters are with other kids, you can see the difference. There's something's going on. And as a mom, we pick that up, right? Or a dad. And then we start wondering. Now, I want to ask you, that denial, is that something you just had with that incident, or was that before too in your pattern?
Denial has always been a big block of mine, whether it's denying that there's a problem or there's something wrong. And it's a block that still pops up. Even things that are simple where, my husband will say to me, what's wrong? I'm fine. And he'll say to me, you're not fine. You look like you're not okay. And I have such that it's something I fall back on, I think, where I think I have to be fine. So let's just shove it to the side. Let's deny that anything's wrong and just move forward.
Yeah. Where do you think that actually originated?
I think it originated from when I was younger that, you don't want to disappoint people. So I've always been that big people pleaser. So if something's wrong, then I'm disappointing someone. Then I am, I can't be perfect. I have this perfectionism thing that goes on. And it's something that as much as, I try and I've come so far with it, that's the thing with blocks is yes, we are going to free them. They're always going to reappear, I think, for us sometimes, but it's about knowing how to move past them into flow. So being able to, do that check-in for me and be like, okay, it's okay to not be okay. It's okay to not be fine.
Yes. Because up until that point, you don't have the awareness, this is what I'm doing. This is the cover-up, right? Denial is a cover-up that comes and covers it up, right? And I just have to pretend I'm okay when I'm not. Right. So let's go back to the past again. So when you were young, did somebody else made you feel or told you that you have to be always okay? Or did you just take on that identity ahead?
I think some of it comes back to when I was a very competitive figure skater. And when you go onto the ice, you are expected to be perfect. You fall, you get up and you smile. You get up and you do this, you move on. The performance has to be perfect. And I skated competitively for almost 15 years. And it was this pressure of, I don't want to let my coaches down, or if I showed emotion, I would get in trouble. So it was, you can't be angry. You have to, even if you mess up, you have to go on. There's no addressing mistakes. And while I think sometimes in sports that happens, that you do need to get up and move on, there's not that reflection piece of, okay, it was okay that I made that mistake. It's okay to cry and be frustrated and be upset. You just had to be okay. You put the makeup on, you go out there, you say hi to everyone that came to watch you. You have to be graceful. There's no room for your emotions.
Yeah, it's a huge conditioning.
Yes.
You were conditioned.
It was, I think I mentally wasn't prepared. No one met me where I was mentally. Like mentally, I think I might have been 13 years old, but I had been so conditioned at one point, 13 was really rough for me, to smile, that I would then be this explosive mess by the time I got home. I was yelling at everyone. I was upset. I was anxious about school. I wasn't even really in school that much because I was at the ice rink, and at the ice rink, you had to be perfect. And nobody took a second to say, are you okay when you're at the ice rink or when you're there? Like, is this not a good idea today? Is it, you can just cry about it.
So do you think looking back in that sport, they could include that also to have time to like release? Because it's okay to let it happen and to, get up, go after, but to have that conversation would have helped you, right?
I think it would have helped me tremendously to know that it was okay to be upset and, not have, everyone staring at you. It was okay to make that mistake and yes, finish your performance, but then, let's get off the ice and have that, you need to have that cry moment, that discussion, that breakdown. And, coaches aren't trained with things like that, in a lot of sports. And I think that as if they want to coach higher up, that they should be in a sense. I know now, you have to take different tests. I coached for a little while, but I've taken a big step back. It's been over 10 years. And you have to take all these courses and about, how to be the best coach. But there's nothing in those courses about how to address the mental health of your competitors or of your students. And I think that's a big thing that needs to be addressed.
Yeah, it's huge, huge. Yes. So what was it like on the other side when, before you, became living in this flow state, right? Because now you're experiencing, what was the feeling? It's like, what were you living with? You said explosive.
Yes, I would feel very trapped and I'd feel like no one understood. No one understood. I felt stuck. And then I would yell, I would explode, or then I would do things like I would get so angry that I would curse. And then it was, you can't do that. That's not allowed. That's, and you would get in more trouble. You would say things like that. And then even as an adult going away to college, that was a big thing for me. I had never been away from home. I had these mental health crises, these mini crises. And I feel like I was 17, 18, but emotionally I was maybe 14 or 15. And I would like sit in the hallway and cry. I didn't know how to socialize. I didn't know how to express to people what I needed without being like the needy, like little kid. Or, everyone kept saying, oh, you need to be independent. I wasn't mentally ready to be independent. And, I think about that a lot, that if I had a chance to do it over, I actually spoke to my mom about it. And she said too, if she had a chance to do it over, they would have had me delay a year and work on my mental health and work on other things that should have been addressed before we just try to push people on this path that we think they belong on.
And going to college, our schools don't prepare us. These sports don't prepare us, right, for the real world. It's a real world. And the real world don't have accommodations for
Right.
anything besides showing up as you're okay every day.
Yeah. And
That's
actually in college was when I was introduced to having accommodations. I have ADHD, and I had a professor say to me, "You seem really anxious taking tests." And I said, "Well, of course I'm anxious. It's a test." He said, "But you know all the answers, and then you go and take the test and you're just failing." So he said, "Do you know that you're allowed to take the test in a separate area? You can get help. You can do things." So even little things that I just wasn't mentally and emotionally mature enough to realize that there are things out there that I can do to help myself.
Because unless someone tells you, you don't know what you don't know, right? Like you just
Right.
not aware of information, right?
Exactly.
So going through that childhood, and you said that the age of 13 and so those ages were so explosive. But also, we never get taught about our hormones or how we're growing up. All this is changing. Your internal system is all changing and growing up, and you're gonna have these explosions. There's no understanding. We're not given those. At least if we're given those education, then we can really start to understand that it's okay. I feel sometimes really sad for no reason, right?
Exactly. And, especially I remember growing up and people being like, oh, she's just hormonal. She's just whatever. But what does that mean? How do I know? I'm PMSing, but did I even know what that even meant? No, I had no idea what that meant. I just knew, okay, I can excuse my behavior with that because everyone says,
label can carry hormonal things.
yeah, exactly. That's exactly the problem. Yeah.
So I find that very shocking that, in our school systems, we should learn about all of our internal systems so that when it does start signaling, we can really start to understand it instead of thinking something's wrong with me.
Right.
Right? Then we carry the story. Something must be wrong with me. Something must be wrong with me. I'm the only one who's going through this. Have you thought of that? I always thought I would.
I definitely thought of that. And I think a big thing for me too was my parents decided to put me on medication for anxiety and ADHD. And it was not an easy decision for them. The anxiety was, I started doing things like, I think trying to compress things. So I would do things like scratching. And I don't even know how to explain it. I would subconsciously scratch at my arms, but it didn't matter. I could have a pen, a pencil, or anything in my hand, and I would be subconsciously scratching. And then when I would kind of snap back and realize I had these marks all over my arms, I was like, well, no one else is like this. No one else is doing this. So my parents thought, okay, let's try some medication. And that did help for a while. And then it became, well, how come I have to take medicine and no one else has to take medication? Why can't I be normal? Why can't I be like everybody else? That feeling of being alone and nobody's like me, when in reality, a lot of people are going through this. And a lot of people I wasn't aware of my systems and aware of what was going on.
Yeah, absolutely. So coming back, so you brought that denial. I should be okay. I should always look like I'm collected and calm, and
Yeah.
although I'm going to explode any minute. And then your son got the or started seeing some behaviors that you thought may look different, and then you started denying it. No, that can't be right. Yeah,
And it was my husband that said to me, I think he's autistic. And I kept going, no, because and then I had other people being like, no, you're right. He makes eye contact, or no, he doesn't. So I was like, see, he's not. And finally, our pediatrician said to me, what is the harm in going to, get him the help and see what they think, see what they say? And so I went, and it was actually a very liberating experience. I went to one of the children's hospitals, and what's nice about that is that they have the doctor there. Then they also have a graduate fellow, and they have a speech therapist. And it's very play-oriented, play-based, and they have a two-way mirror where they're watching and whatever, and they were able to get to know me as a person, but then also explain why he met certain criterias, why he met certain things, and that it was okay. It was nothing I did. It was nothing, I didn't damage him by not getting help or being in denial, but these are all the things I can do for him by having this diagnosis.
So how has becoming a coach helped you with that?
It has helped a lot. I think not only in just the denial aspect, but in also the reframing aspect of my mind and being aware. A lot of times, whether our kids are neurotypical or neurodivergent, they have meltdowns. They have tantrums. They have other things where before I could feel like when he would have a tantrum or my shoulders would go up. I'd feel like my fists kind of clenching. And I was like, this is like, I'm embarrassed. Where instead of focusing on, oh my goodness, this is embarrassing for me, I then was able to reframe it and be like, wow, they are having a really tough time. Like taking me out of the equation and not, oh my goodness, he's doing this to me. How could we do this again? It then became, how can I help him adapt to an environment? How can I help my daughter be more comfortable where she is? And it's made it easier. My husband and I used to not go out with the kids a lot. It's something that we're really working on because we'd be like, oh, they're just going to melt down. This is going to be awful. But I even see my husband now being able to reframe because he hears it from me so much, being like, they're fine. He's just being 4. He needs, let's just give him a sensory toy or, let's just bring snacks and it's fine. Or I also see my son now because I talk to my brain and I will sometimes talk to my brain out loud. I will be like, it's okay. We're fine. We're going to get everything done. My son talks like he's on a YouTube channel. We laugh. He'll be like, hey guys, it's okay. Mom says we're going to get dinner soon, but I can wait. I'm a big boy. And so it's so fun and funny to see it like bleeding into their lives and how much of a happier. And he's like happy as could be, just talking away to himself about, it's going to be okay.
Where he's calming himself down. Instead of going to cry and eat food, he's actually doing it. That's amazing. Love it. So what was the turning point where you said, I want to become a holistic neurogrowth learning success coach using the blocks to flow method?
So the point I decided I wanted to become a coach was I was really stuck in the education system, having been a special educator for over a decade. And I've worked with kids from preschool age all the way up through middle school. And I've worked in both inclusive environments and self-contained environments. I'm trained in methods of ABA. I'm trained in 2 different methods of restraint training, which is scary to even say that, that's having to be trained in that to be in a school. I was 9 months pregnant with my daughter, and I got attacked by a student that sent me into urgent care. And the county said, we're really sorry, but there's nothing we can do. There was no addressing it with him. There was no addressing it with me. There was not even taking into consideration that I could have went into labor. And I said, I can't. Something is broken here. I cannot keep doing this. And that is when I went to one of your, meetings to get information about it. And I was like, this is what we need. And then as I started working with more and more students and getting these clients, I was learning more also about the blocks to flow method. And I was like, I need to be certified in this too, because this is what they need. I know now from your method how to get them, into the school and get through school. But what happens when I'm not there? I was seeing, so much of like with tutoring, they become reliant on us or with parents. But how do I release that block of I need you, I can't do this without you, to look at me thriving as somebody independent? And that's what blocks to flow has kind of taught me how to help my clients, is how to thrive as an independent person, living their best lives, meeting their success, and not then meeting a goal and going, okay, now what?
Flow means you flow everywhere.
Yeah. And,
Right?
seeing them go into flow and then being able to coach them through, okay, it didn't go well. Now what? That doesn't mean it's all over. It's all ruined. Where before I think I became a learning success coach, I would have been like, well, let's go back to square one. What happened? Now I'm able to kind of assess the situation and be like, okay, but where did the block happen? How did we make this mistake? And how can we move it forward back into flow?
Yes. Amazing. So where did you realize this method is working for your students as you're using it? What are the things you see that makes you believe that this is it? This is it.
I see the independent drive. So I see where it goes from, okay, let's look at your syllabus. I work with a lot of students that are in high school and college. So let's look at your syllabus. Okay, let me help you plan everything out on your calendar. How are we going to do this? To midway through a semester, I have one client who said to me, oh, I already put everything in my calendar. Oh, I'm caught up on these assignments. Here, let me show you. Here's how I'm also maintaining this job, but I'm going to quit this job. But don't worry. I found a job that's better for me, that's on campus. And it's this like, oh, you need me, but you don't need me. Like this independence and thriving. And the parents will say to me, we have her back. Especially this client in particular was one who had gone to college away and it didn't work out. They had to bring her home and do the community college and she's thriving now. It works. I don't even know how to explain it to people, but it works.
So let's go back to yourself. Where did you feel it? You're using this method on yourself as well, right? As you're working through your block. Because if you don't work through your blocks, you can't coach others. We know this, right? Because we need to be in flow to coach others. So where did you feel it in your body and when did you start noticing that I'm starting to?
So I think at the beginning, I had a lot of blocks. When I decided I'm done with the classroom, I'm going to do this. You have the money block. You have the block of, I've never done this before. And then I was able to see success in my students and I could feel the flow coming. And it's also that feeling of, I definitely felt it when I was working with my first few clients where I'd look at the clock and be like, oh, it's been almost an hour of working with you. But you get in that zone and you get in that feeling of my shoulders are down. I'm doing what I love. For me, I'm not having to use these methods of restraint and protocol, and then I can go be present as a mother, as a wife, as, just as a family. I would love to tell you there was like one moment where it was like this wow change, but it was like a gradual flow kind of process that the more I kind of gave into and like delved into this process, the more I feel like I became myself again. And I became somebody who loves working with others, who loves being a mother and can be present as a mother. Somebody who is like, all right, I get to go do some work today, not, all right, let's get the kids ready. I got to go get some work done. So that's not to say there's not hard days. There's always going to be hard days, but there's a difference.
Hard days. How are you able to now deal with those hard days, right? Because those are available every day. There must be a number of hours that are hard for mom, right? With little kids. That's normal, right?
I think a big thing is awareness. So I am aware if I just wake up and I'm feeling off, or I'm aware that this is a rough day, but that doesn't mean this is a rough week. It doesn't mean this is going to be a rough whole day. Maybe it's just a rough hour. One of those days yesterday, my son woke up on the wrong side of the bed. My 1-year-old didn't sleep. And I found myself just spiraling like, oh, here we go. But then I caught myself. And it was one of those where I was like, okay, we're having a rough morning. Let's reset. I did my deep breaths. And it's funny, my daughter is starting to do them with us, but she thinks like when you take a deep breath, it's because you're blowing on a food that's hot. So she'll sit there and go, hot, 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 hot. So, she's starting to kind of, it doesn't work, right? And, it gives us a laugh and we were able to kind of reset. We had breakfast. I was able to give myself the time I needed to. I was able to say, we have a babysitter that comes. I need a break. I'm going to go out of the house and run these errands and come back and be reset. It's those little like awareness of knowing also what I need to feel back into flow. And everyone's is different. So some people go back into flow by taking a jog or a walk. Some people do it by going to get a coffee. I do it by going to run errands by myself. Is something that's like beautiful. Like when you have young kids and they're everywhere, getting to go run an errand by myself is my way of getting to
pull them off. You can just get out of your car.
Yes. There's no don't have to wrestle anyone into car seats. Make sure that I have a cart. So it's little things of knowing what works for me too.
That's beautiful. That's the number one thing, right? Awareness.
Yes.
And then reframing it. Like you did amazing in so many ways that we're reframing. It's just the morning. That's all. It's not the whole day, not the whole week, not my whole life is off. We exaggerate, right? My whole life is in those kind of things, we're already setting ourselves, right? Whatever we say is whatever we get, and that's what we live with, right?
Yes.
So if we could just say this is just a half hour or this is just a 10 minutes, we're going to get over this. Right? So I love it. I love it. So now you're working with your students. And how about your son? How are you? I'm hearing lots about that. There's no denial anymore. That's,
Yeah.
does that ever come back? No, he fully accepted who he is as
I
a soul.
fully accepted who he is. I think that I see denial in different aspects once in a while, where he also, recently he got a diagnosis of hypotonia, and he is required to wear SMO ankle braces, and he also wears a DMO suit. So that was a new form of acceptance that, muscular things are going to be hard for him as well. And I think learning to accept, and it's silly things like helping him accept himself too, has kind of helped as well. He's starting to know that that not everybody has to wear what he calls his car shoes, because those are the design he chose for his braces. And, he'll say to me, I said, well, they help you be strong. And I had this moment of, that's not a good answer, when he said to me, I don't want to be strong. I just want to be Benjamin. And I said, okay. So let's talk about who Benjamin is, in like a 4-year-old way. And we said, so who is Benjamin? And he goes, well, I am strong. I said, you are. He goes, I don't need that to be strong. So I said, you're right. You don't, but it helps you. And we had to have that talk. And I think in a way I was in my own denial of, you have to wear it because the doctor says, and that's, and so he started being like, well, I'm not going to wear this. I can be me and not wear this. And so accepting that it's part of who he is, and it's part of, going through it. My husband will tell you he went through this little bit of denial with, he's not going to be this athlete. My husband was a college football player. So he wanted his son to be this athlete, but that's not what it means. It means he may do different sports. Things might look different. He loves to swim. He might, and so it's been this big reframe and like denial reframe for our whole family. Cause that's been, yes, he's autistic, and we had gotten to that, but then we went to this whole next step of like, now there's something muscularly that we have to deal with. And it's been a journey. I'm not going to say I wasn't jumping for joy when I was told he has to wear these braces, but teaching him to love himself in them and love who he is has also helped me with that block in myself as well, because I've had to also learn that is just who he is, and that's what we have to do. And that's how we move on in life and teach him to accept it. He's going to a new school this year, and they asked us, we have a book that somebody wrote that we read him, that they're going to read to the other kids, because I felt myself tensing up about what if they say something and the teacher goes, it's okay. There's another kid that wears them in the school. It's okay. You want to bring the book? We'll read the book. That's just him. So it's been, denial does still creep in once in a while. I definitely will see myself being like, oh, he doesn't, I made the mistake of saying to him the other day, oh, you don't need to wear them. It's fine. It's fine. Well, the next day his legs were too tired and he fell down the stairs. And it was one of those like, okay, take a deep breath. He doesn't want to wear them. He's 4, but he doesn't want to wear them because maybe I'm making it into a big hassle of, you have to do this, you have to do this. And instead of talking about it in this negative way of, it's going to make you stronger, I need to talk to him about it in this other way of, it helps you be you. It helps you keep up. It helps you look at all these fun things you get to do.
I'm just thinking, I don't know him, but maybe what if it becomes like something that he wears that like he becomes like a Superman, or he becomes somebody, right? He
did name his bodysuit his super suit. So, we've been working through that.
Something that it just helps you to be super. You're right. Or super, or something like you just keep saying to him, where he doesn't feel like this is something that's trapped in me, versus it just makes me flow.
Yeah.
When I use the word flow, it just makes me flow better.
And 4-year-olds are unapologetic. So I definitely will say that, it takes you a step back to be like, okay, how am I talking to him about this, that he is having a negative feeling about this? Like, how am I, so you start to, having kids helps you see your blocks, definitely, because they're mimics. They do what you do.
Yeah. They just like, that's why when you're already feeling like sad, the kids ask you, right, are you okay?
Yeah.
Kids are the first people to ask you, like even not, doesn't even have to be your kids. Like if you're at school and you're a teacher, around kids, they'll say, look at your energy, and they'll immediately say, are you okay?
Yep. Are you okay? Or why are you mad? Why are you sad?
When you're worried or mad,
Yeah.
right? So they sense energy, just like, even dogs too, right? They sense it.
Yeah.
You're
And
not
I
doing
definitely
that.
will say before this, when kids would ask me or whatever, I'd be like, I'm not. And instead of being like, you know what? I am a little bit. Let me see if I can kind of reframe that.
Yeah, but
'Cause
we are taught to deny our feelings, right? We're not supposed to show our feelings, so we're supposed to hide it. We know, like when you're looking mad, the kid says, are you okay? You say, oh, yeah, I am fine.
right.
No, I'm fine. I'm really, like you were saying earlier, your husband, calls you out on it, right? You
Yeah.
say, I'm fine. The way you say it, the tone and your face and the color of your face, somebody already knows you're not fine.
That, and then I think back to when I was in the classroom too, and you would have kids that come in that are like really tired, and you go, "Are you okay?" And they would go, "I'm just really tired." And then you were kind of taught as a teacher to say, "I'm so sorry you're tired, but we're at school now. Let's get going." And you're going, "But we didn't address the fact that maybe you are hungry, you are tired, you are." We're teaching them that it's okay, you're tired. You have to do this now.
We've got work to do. Let's
Yeah.
go. That's the performance, right? Let's output. Who cares about whether your internal systems are running or shutting down, or you already shut down? We're just going to keep it going. So that's the prerequisites that's missing in our learning, right?
Yeah.
And that's what you do as a coach is to give them those prerequisites, give them those opportunities to reframe. How many kids completely say every day, I'm tired, I'm tired, I'm tired, because not knowing what's going on in this body.
Yeah.
They could be eating the wrong thing, one wrong thing every day, and that's their favorite thing, and that's causing them to get that fatigue, and they're just gonna start learning to say, "I'm tired," and then we call them lazy, and they have all the, they call themselves lazy too, right?
I go through that with some of my clients and their families, and it's, an interesting dynamic. Well, he's tired because he's up till 3 a.m. Why is he up till 3 a.m.? Why is his sleep schedule off? Why are we, and, or they'll say, well, I just couldn't sleep. Well, what did you try? What did you try to help you sleep? What happened right before you went to bed? And we're able to kind of break that down because just not sleeping, that's not the answer.
Absolutely. Yeah, and you have to really get them to be aware of, if you do this before going to bed, it's obviously going to keep you up.
Right.
I mean, if you're doing this, and then if you stay up the next morning, what's the consequence of it, right?
Yeah. And especially in like our today's culture where everything is so online, so electronic, and so, everything, teaching them that there's nothing wrong with technology and electronics, but it's not necessarily the best thing to do right before you try to fall asleep.
I mean, I always say to people, if it's working for you, go ahead. But then you stay up until 3 a.m. Obviously, it's not working.
Right.
Right? Like, if you're able to fall asleep, that's great. Have your phone, fall asleep.
Right.
But if you're continuously having this nights where you're up like this, and then the daytime you're so not having the energy to do anything, so then that defeats the purpose. And now it's a problem. It's not a problem until it's not a problem.
Right. And I have parents, and like I said, I tend to, it's so funny that I fell into working with these older kids because I came from working with younger ones, and they'll be like, well, I'll just disconnect the Wi-Fi. And I'll be like, okay, but they're 17 years old and no one's going to do that in real life. They have to be aware, disconnecting the Wi-Fi. All you're going to do is ramp up their anxiety of, oh no, what's happening? What if they were doing schoolwork? What if they were? So, it's working through that. Even teaching parents that you have to teach them awareness. So taking things away doesn't always build that awareness.
And also, the boundary is something personally set, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you can only say, like, I have an 18-year-old son, so only I can say to him, okay, you can stay up all night you want, but then you have obligations in the morning, right? Those are not going away. Can you get rid of them? Is it possible? No, it's not going away. So then you need to make adjustments about the night. So what adjustments are you going to make?
Right. They
Whatever
have to
that
have
is,
ownership. Yeah.
yeah, make the adjustment, because obviously the daytime you're collapsing.
Yes.
And if it's okay to collapse, if that's the life you want to live, then that's okay. But that's what it is. That's the result of it, and then you investigate what is that happening to you because of what. So you got to help them connect it instead of drawing the boundaries or telling the rules, right? Because when you're telling, it's told. Who likes at 17, 18? Told. I never liked anything to be told.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not doing that. The minute
Right.
somebody tells
Let's
me,
do it. Right. I don't need to do that. And it's funny, they now will get like their class schedules and like, especially like my college students will be like, ugh, I have an 8 a.m. How am I going to do this? And it's like, well, what do you mean? How are you going to do this? That's your obligation. How do we adjust so that we can do this? I had one say to me, well, what if I don't take the class? I said, okay, can you graduate without the class? Well, no. Okay, well, then I'll just stay an extra semester. Okay, but your parents are paying for school. So are you going to? So, it's working through that, playing that devil's advocate almost of, okay, but then what? Like, what happens when these things happen?
yeah, I love that. I think that this with the young adults, if we could put that reasoning, they're just developing that reasoning, and it's just at that peak, like if we could just go through the path. Okay, you don't want to do any courses. So then what? Your parents are going to pay for it. So then what? You're going to pretend like you're going to class or something. Or then what? They're going to find out you didn't do any work and you don't graduate. Then what? So if you could just take that story that they are making, because we're story making machines, right? So okay, you don't want to be here. So then if you're that confident about that, that you should be telling your parents not to waste the money to send you there. It's fair, right?
Yeah, and having those conversations, I mean, it really like turns a light on for them, as opposed to saying, your parents paying for it, and they are like, well, then I'm not doing that.
So these options, right? I love it because I explored that with my son when his dad was sick, and I had to help him. I didn't know, that was the first time I was really close to someone like that fast, heart attack, and it all happened. He was like, I think he was 6 at the time.
Oh, wow.
And he was just devastated. And he actually watched it too. He was with him at the time by himself. So it was very traumatic. He went in the ambulance with him. So everything was happening around him. So too much.
Right.
So then he came back home and he was just shocked and he was just destroyed, right? He just thought he's out. He's done. So I said, no. Look at him. He's eating. All these mischiefs are doing jobs for him. Look at it. And then on my way back, I said to him, okay, let's go through these scenarios. Let's do some storytelling, right? And I said, okay, what can happen? Your dad is on this support. It's going to work. Every doctor's going to look after him. He's going to recover. It's going to take a week or 2, 3, and then you're going to start talking to him. You're fine. He can come out. Or these machines don't help him, and he needs to go to another hospital or something, or he needs to get a surgery or something. That could happen as well. Or the worst is that he may never come back. And then it was hard to tell him that, but I had to tell him because I just have to put it out. All these options are possible, right? It's all possible. He will come out and he goes then he might come out and you might go on another vacation with him. Like brought the back to the good and said he kind of smiled. So the following day or two, I was kind of feeling kind of low for a bit, right? And then he came to me and said, "Ma, what's going on?" As we talked about the end, right? What's wrong, Mom? I said, no, nothing. He said, are you worried about that? And I said, no, not really. And he said, no, Ma, just one of those options is going to happen. We discussed like 6 options.
Yeah.
He said, one of those 6 things will happen. Don't worry. I was like, what?
It's amazing.
One of those things will happen. Don't worry.
Yeah, just
Just one of those 6 things will happen. That's it. So they need that, right? They need to role play that. Otherwise, it's uncertainty that traps them in fear and panic. They don't know what is going to happen. But if we could just model it, what's going to happen, especially even with older kids or the young adults, right? Because they fear the unknown.
They do.
The world is a new world for them, and they fear every unknown. What if I can't get that job? What job am I going to get? What if I don't pass this course? What if I fail? What if I'm not this or that? But what if you that? What if you don't pass this class? Let's just look at it. What's going to happen? What are the options if you don't pass this class?
And I think sometimes too, I found some of my post-COVID kids, the ones that went through high school and COVID, their parents have worked so hard to make their lives so comfortable at home that I've actually had to go the other route and said, okay, well, unfortunately, your parents, you're going to outlive your parents. You can't just stay in the basement or the living room or whatever forever. What happens? And some of them could give me answers, and some of them were like, well, my sister. And I was like, but it's not your sister's job to take care of you. It's not, and so, sometimes those scenarios, and I always say to parents, I hate going to that worst case, but sometimes they're just not hearing it because they're so comfortable at home. And that's okay. That's great that you made home so safe for them. But you also, some of them are like, but I want them out. And I was like, I get that. So,
Yeah. And also that's when parents can have the same conversation, right?
Yeah.
When are you going to leave, right? What is the plan, right? Or when is the plan move out date? And they say, I don't know. And then you say, okay, let's say if it's tomorrow, if it's in 2 months, or if it's in 2 years, what do you need to get done in order to do it in those time frames, right? But you have to be, because you are an adult, that's what we do. And how are you going to get there? Then we can draw the map. And because it's uncertainty and unknown is what keeps them living in their basement.
Oh, yeah.
They don't have any idea. The world just looks so scary. So what was the hardest pattern or belief to unlearn? And how did you move through it?
I think the hardest for me when it comes to coaching was unlearning that as a teacher, content was first. They had to hit a certain skill by a certain time. And as a special educator, I had to make those accommodations. And if they weren't doing it, then I wasn't accommodating, right? I wasn't. But unlearning that that's not the first step. The first step is not analyzing to say, how can I fix all your problems? It's where are you at and how can I meet you there? That was really tough for me to unlearn, especially with my first few clients when parents like, but we need reading help. And my first thought would be like, all right, let me assess your reading level. Let me see where we're at. To then say, okay, let's stop and go, what's blocking you from reading? And sometimes it was as simple as, I can't read. Why do you say that? Well, they had me read out loud in class once and someone laughed at me. Other times, there may be other things going on, but it's seeing so many of our coaches talk about beyond those labels, that these children are more than these labels. And these labels also can't be excuses. And I'm finding with, I think as an educator, I would have taken that excuse of, oh, it's because I'm dyslexic. I just can't do this. And I would go, okay, well, let me see what I can do to help you. Let me find these, to now being like, but okay, so that's what you want me to know about you, is that you're dyslexic? And how can we move around that? What are your options? How can we open these doors? But that's been really tough, having been in education for over a decade. That was really drilled into me more than I think I realized.
It's all content, curriculum, and we expect all those children or students to be in flow. We're looking at them as, you're already in flow, you're already accelerating, so let me just keep accelerating with you. Yeah. But we have kids who are blocked and who are stuck. There's no readiness. There's no readiness yet. They have the potential, but they're not ready yet. That's the phase that we miss. So the prerequisite, right? That prerequisite is so important. And that comes in many forms, as you say, sometimes it's those labels that they carry, sometimes how they talk to themselves, sometimes it's the label they gave themselves, right? It doesn't even have to be an actual real diagnosis they got. It's just the label I gave myself. I need to give myself stupid all the time. Everything was stupid, and I was stupid, and everything else was stupid, and sometimes other people were stupid too. That was my whole story.
Yep, there's that. And then I've heard recently with clients that would be like, it's the teacher. The teacher's awful. We're all failing. It's all the teacher. Okay, so you can't write a paper because the teacher is terrible. Well, let's break that down. What's blocking you. And I've also found it lead into my actual life. I said, I do talk about my son a lot. My son is very gifted. So even though he's 4 and he knows all of his letter sounds, can count to and from, someone said to me, you should teach him to read. I said, I'm not going to do that. Where typically I would have said, yeah, you're right, I should. And they said, well, why wouldn't you do that? I said, well, because, you're right. He could start reading, but he doesn't know how to interact with others. He doesn't know how to control himself when something doesn't go his way. And until he can do all of that, he doesn't need to have the reading pushed. And that actually influenced how we picked schooling for him too. I wanted somewhere that was going to address who he is as a person, not just, wow, he has all these splinter skills. Let's make him into this super gifted, needs gifted and talented, when he needs to be a complete person.
A holistic approach is important. To see him as a whole person is important. Yes, absolutely. So if your younger self could witness you now, what would they notice first?
I think they'd notice a calmer presence about me. I mean, I still have a lot of energy. That's never going to change, but I think it's a more rational energy in a way. It's not as impulsive. It's, I stop, I think, and they think that my younger self would also notice this happiness about me that I would never have expected. Even simple things. I used to tell my parents that I was never going to find someone. I was never going to get married, never anything. I was going to make sure I had kids because I wanted them, but I was never going to, be able to have a career. And the fact that I am in a happy marriage, I am living my best life. And then guess what? I'm not a teacher anymore. I'm more than that is amazing. And also my anxious younger self to see me speaking to groups of people would be shocked. And I think finding that happiness, being able to bypass that block has just made me overall a stronger person.
Absolutely. Yes. If our listeners could take one simple action today to step toward closer to alignment, what would you step closer to alignment? Because we talked about awareness. In our process, the next step is alignment, right? If they could take one step closer to that alignment, what could they do?
I would say two things. Take a moment to ground yourself every day. Definitely take a moment, whether it is you go stand in your closet where no one's bothering you and take those breaths before you start your day. But then also pick one thought. Pick one thought that's going on in your mind and write it down. And then think about how you can reframe that positively. Even if it's something as simple as the laundry is never ending. Write it down and then reframe it as, I'm going to get part of the laundry done, and then we're going to move aside and move on with our lives. Something that small moves you more than you think towards alignment, and returning every day is so big to doing things.
Because when laundry is that big, that means you're carrying that laundry all day long as a weight. It's weighing you down in everything you do because that laundry is dirty, right? So now you feel like your life is soiled, right? That just by saying that, I'll just deal with part of it and deal with the other part later. Cool. I love it. So reframe, grounding, and reframing. Write down a thought, right? You said that's bothering you. That's kind of rotating nonstop.
Yes.
Spiraling, and write it down and then reframe it. Love it. So finish the note. Before we go there, I want to ask you, how can people connect with you? Because you're a coach now, so you have a business. So how can they connect with you?
They can connect with me through Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn. I'm always happy to have people reach out to me through my email and be able to, set up times to talk, to chat. I'm always here when I can, fit it. I have times and schedules fit in just to work with people.
Perfect. And we're going to have Coach Alexa's information below this video when we do put it out. So you're going to have all her information in her email so you can book a time with her. So, Alexa, can you finish the sentence for me? Flow is?
Freedom. Flow is freedom.
Love it. So one word that describes you when you're fully in flow.
Oh, that's tough. One word. I would say, weirdly enough, determined, because when I'm in flow, I'm just pushing forward. I am that determined to get things done and keep moving.
Beautiful. Determined. Thank you. One practice that instantly helps you return to alignment.
Breathing. And it was a practice that felt weird for me at the beginning, but now feels just part of my everyday.
I might steal your daughters.
Yes.
Because it actually pushes out any kind of fear. I might be holding it. I'm like, doesn't it? It actually
does, yeah.
About it too. I can have a sense of humor added to that because it came from 1-year-old. So it gives me amazing. I like it. I'm going to try. Whenever I'm going to start kind of explosion, I'm going to go. Awesome. So one truth you wish everyone knew about learning, living, and leading in flow. One truth.
I wish everyone knew that it's achievable. That it is more than just a grade or, how much money you're earning and things. That it is a holistic experience and anyone can achieve that flow.
And it's available to us. Everything is available to us. Writing the thoughts are available to us, just a piece of paper and a pen. And then reframing is available to us. Like we don't need to go somewhere else to get these things. They're
Right.
just here, right? So it's so easy to do. But until awareness is there, until we see that, we cannot help ourselves, right? That's the problem. That's where the blocks hold you like a hostage.
Yes.
So thank you. Thank you so much for coming in and sharing your story and sharing about your son. I think you have a superstar in whatever he come and expresses his soul print, right? We all have our soul print. That's why we're here. However he does it, he'll show you guys, and through that we learn, right? From our
Yes.
kids.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much.
You've been listening to Blocks to Flow, where learning, living, and leading return to alignment. Keep reconnecting. Keep restoring. Keep rewiring your way back to rhythm. Discover more at holisticsuccesscodes.com and join the movement reshaping how we learn, live, and lead. Until next time, flow forward.